Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to just talk for a few minutes about my field placement in northern Finland. I was in a small village called Inari, which was, it might confuse you guys because Inari is a village, a municipality, and a Sami people. So I might be saying Inari a lot, so I'm sorry. Just to give you a bit of context, I was about 300 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle. Inari is the top kind of last place in Finland, basically. And so it was not quite the climate that 300 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle is in Canada. It was kind of like a cool spring for the whole time I was there, so it wasn't so bad. Just a bit of an overview of what I did in my placement. So the organization of my placement was a little bit different. I was technically doing my placement through the Sami Education Institute, which is a local Sami kind of vocational college in Inari, the village. And also, though, through CASLE Gathering, which is the language association in Inari for the Inari Sami language. Like I said, it's going to get a little confusing probably. So, like I said, all the logistical stuff was through the school, and my work was done with the language association. And my main project was developing an English website for the CASLE program. And I'll talk a little bit about the CASLE program throughout. And just to give a very brief overview of that, it was a one-year pilot project for an intensive language learning program. And so there was about 20 participants, and for a year they were immersed in the Sami language through coursework, practical training in jobs, and with language masters, so native language speakers. We co-coordinated, along with one of my coworkers, a gathering for CASLE students at the end of my placement. So students, staff, and language masters gathered. For a lot of them, it was the first time they had seen each other since 2011, so it was a pretty special night. And I also did some presentations on Indigenous languages in Canada. So these are me, and Helly in the middle. She was my coworker during the time. The Language Association was very generous and hired her for the duration of my field placement, and which kind of saved me because Helly spoke Finnish, Inari Sami, and English, and everyone speaks a lot of Finnish there and not a lot of English. So, like I said, it saved me. And Suvi on the far right there, she was a participant in the CASLE program, and she provided a lot of support during my time there. She works for the Sami Archives now. Her office was just kind of down the hallway. And Anna was another student in the CASLE program and has since taken over a very similar program that the school offers. So she began teaching it right after she was a participant. So she was very fast language learner. So our website project, we worked on, there is an existing website with very little content, and the goal for the website was to kind of get that information out in English. I know doing my research before I went, very little is published in English on Sami people. Most of it's in Finnish or Norwegian or Swedish. So trying to kind of get out the work that they're doing there, which is very impressive, the language revitalization work. So we created biographies for the language masters, translating old interviews that they had done right after the program ended. Photo and video galleries. There were several documentaries that were on the website that had been taken during cultural courses, and we had the fun job of translating and subtitling them. And I have to tell you, there's not a lot of really good translations for some of the cultural cooking that they do with reindeer blood and guts, and I'll just save you that, but the website is there at the bottom if you're interested. And we also put some book information. There was an English book that was produced, which is the reason I ended up in Inari. I read it, became very interested in the work that they were doing there. And course content, the cultural courses were a really important part of the program, and they're really interesting. So yeah, and there's even, I got somehow talked into doing a documentary about myself while I was there, and it's on the website too. So here's a few pictures. So when I got there in mid-April, it was reindeer are obviously a really big part of the culture and the lifestyle in Inari. reindeer herding is still one of the main kind of occupations. And 3 times a year they round them all up. Otherwise they're roaming, which kind of caused a very big scare for me when a few weeks after I got there, when there was just reindeer walking around, and I was like, oh my God. But so right after we got there, Helly, who I worked with, her dad is a reindeer herder, and so she took me with him, and we fed the reindeer. And so that first top picture is they were kind of trailing our little trailer as we were feeding them. And the second picture is the building that I worked in, Sayos, which was a brand new cultural center and kind of a hub for the Inari Sami in Inari. And it hosted the Sami Parliament of Finland, as well as lots of other Sami agencies and services. And this bottom picture is the view from my cabin or dorm that I stayed in for the 2 months, so not a bad place to be. And so some of the other activities I got to do, a lot with the Sami culture. So this is kind of where the school part of my, the Sami Education Institute kind of kicked in with my field placement. I was able to participate in quite a bit with the Inari Sami language program. So they did a cooking course, an all-day cooking course where we did fish, soup, and dried fish. And so I got to participate in that. Mostly observe, because they try and speak Inari Sami to one another, so it was just a lot of watching, and but it was really interesting. Also visited a lot of sacred sites in the area. Finland is really unique in that they're, especially northern Finland is mostly untouched by natural resource development. So there's so many beautiful and sacred places kind of in the vicinity that I was. I also got to go to Norway with the language program. They did a 2-day trip to kind of visit some of the sacred sites in Norway. And so the Skolt Sami is another Sami group that's in Finland, and they've been kind of displaced from Norway, but they also are in Russia as well. And so we got to visit some of their territory as well as the North Sami territory as well. And Inari the village is also the host to a National Sami Museum, which was really, really great. I spent quite a bit of time there, and in just the last 2 weeks I was there, they opened their open air museum, which is also really fascinating, and fed reindeer. And so there's another, I was really lucky to be a part of a conference that was held in Inari in June. So it was called Experiencing and Protecting Arctic Sacred Sites and Culturally Important Landscapes. And it was a gathering of Indigenous peoples, scholars, and organizations, as well as non-Indigenous scholars involved in the environment and law. And so there was representatives from Canada, Finland, Norway, Russia, and Austria in the United States. There was a lot of representation from Russia, which I found really fascinating. I didn't know a lot about the different Indigenous groups in Russia, so it was a very big learning experience for me. So. And the CASLE Gathering that I mentioned was the second last day of my placement, and so we organized the event, and it was an opportunity to show everyone involved with the program the English website and kind of the work that we had been doing. And some of the language masters don't really speak any English, so but they didn't really know maybe everything that the English website, but a lot of the students really enjoyed some of the subtitles and the documentaries in English. There might be some additions to our translations. And like I said, for several people, it was the first time seeing each other, and it was a very, hearing them talk about it, it was a very emotional journey for them. Like I said, it was very intensive for 1 year, seeing everyone. I think I can relate, seeing the same people every day. And so it was, they all really enjoyed that opportunity. And so we were able to do a boat cruise and same people. And it's top of one of the sacred sites. Inari is also situated right on a huge lake called Inari, another Inari. So that's just from there. And a few lessons learned. So I learned a lot about language revitalization, which is the reason I went there, the reason I was interested in going to Inari. There's also a lot of political tensions among Sami, which I wish I had time to talk about, but I don't. Well, and some practical learning, flexibility. There's some definite ups and downs of my placement, so being flexible and adaptive is very important. And the focus that not just Inari Sami people, but Sami people place on culture and language for sustainability was really interesting. And just a few main challenges. As I mentioned, the language barrier was very difficult to deal with, and which also kind of related into some isolation. So I'm getting the stop thing, so that's perfect. I'm done. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Does anyone have a question? Yes, please, Dr. Curry.
There is. The Sami Parliament in Finland has been, in conjunction with the Norwegian Sami Parliament, has been given quite, actually the project is just finishing now, but they were given a huge 5-year grant to develop materials, because that's something in language revitalization we see all the time. Developing the materials to support it is really difficult. And they've used lots of technology to do that, and certainly within the teaching as well. Actually, when I was in Inari, they were having an educators conference about using, I don't remember the name of the software, but to online software to better, to kind of better do that, educate with. So it's definitely present. I mean, the struggle is still getting the funding, because even though this grant was large, after that, there's nothing really in place to keep doing that. So, and in Finland, it's interesting because there's definitely a growing awareness of the Sami people, but if you talk to a lot of people in southern Finland, they wouldn't really know about the Sami people. And that's certainly an attitude I think I've heard Sami people talk about that the government of Finland also carries. So there's been some support, but I don't know if it's quite up to speed with what they're doing nationally.